Good afternoon, YouTube. It's later in the afternoon. Sorry I did not get this video out at 10 a.m. like I usually do. Had a minor technical difficulty, but we, are getting back into our regularly scheduled program, so I apologize about the video being released a little bit later this afternoon. But Sundays are always our release dates, and that will continue. This will not happen again next weekend. So anyway, what we're doing today, as you guys can see from the thumbnail, we are doing another bowl project, but we're doing something a little bit different than this one. We're going back to doing a little bit of a bigger bowl. You can see there, last year I had some, I think it was oak or walnut, and we mixed that with epoxy, made some really good looking bowls. And for the past couple of weeks, we've been doing just regular smaller bowls with lids, but I thought, you know what, we've done those, and I kind of want to do something a little bit different. And I decided, you know what, let's make a bigger bowl and get rid of some of these colors that we've had laying around the shop for a couple of years now. These pigments and colors I've literally have had in the shop for the past couple of years. And really, I use them in smaller projects, but I decided just to take a couple of random ones, put them all together, use this really big pot, and make something a little bit different in today's project. So there won't be a lid, but the project's going to come out absolutely beautiful. So we're going to just do something a little bit different than we've been doing on the channel. So 4.5 hours later, I put that initial batch into the pressure pot for 4.5 hours. It came out really good. There's no cracks, no dings, nothing like that. And we're just going to add a little bit more of epoxy and mix up these colors again like we did previously, and just get them into the pressure pot again for another 4.5 hours. I learned from my mistakes of doing this for almost 6 years now. The more epoxy that you put, especially on these like table coat epoxies, they will tend to crack, so there's only so much depth you can do during one initial pour. And there are epoxies out there that are a little bit better about not cracking, but I just decided to do it later. So in total, 4.5 hours later, this is kind of the blank that we're working with here. And I love the colors, the sparkles, the blues, the greens, the turquoise. It looks really, really cool. So I'm like, all right, cool. And something a little bit different. We haven't done one of these in a very long time. And if you go back and watch my really old videos, I used to put like big pieces of like pine in the middle to kind of save on epoxy. And I just, as much as I thought those looked good, that big piece of pine on the bottom of those looks really bad. So I learned my lesson and just have to bite the bullet and, not do that. So getting this piece of 2x4 square on there just to make everything nice and even. That's going to be our attachment point for our faceplate there. And I've gotten really better about using the actual, impact driver, making guide holes, all that good stuff. Now the problem with doing epoxy, something this big, is there's going to be a lot of wobble. So I just have a Nova MIDI lathe, and it's only designed to handle so much. And as many times as I've said this, unfortunately my lathe is probably on its last legs. And initially not a whole lot of wobble. There was a little bit of wobble. If you don't center everything nice and even initially, you're gonna have some issues. But fun fact about this, I let the epoxy set up for about 10 days before we actually started the actual gouging portion of it, and it set up really good. And it's also 1,000 degrees here in the state of Texas, so the epoxy tends to work a little bit better in those warmer temperatures because it kind of just melts off the shavings, versus the epoxy being a little too hard where it kind of just breaks off like glass. But not a whole lot of problems there. Once we took off a majority of that material and got everything nice, even, balanced, the rest of the project tended to go relatively easy. And now we're just going to make the mortise here. This is about the only part that I think I had any kind of like real issues with. Just trying to size up how everything is, and then I learned my lesson as well. Use those mini gouges, the round and square, just to kind of make that mortise the size that you want it to, and I'm just trying to make everything nice and even. So once that's done, now we can take off the waste block, and usually I work that down on the lathe, but I've decided for the past couple of projects that we've done just to, sharpen my chisels and get that hot glue off, and then just pop that off. And it tends to go a lot easier that way, I think. So not a whole lot of problems there. That pops off, no issues. And now we can start the actual gouging portion of it. But before then, we just want to get that nice base nice and even, and then we can actually start the actual gouging portion of it here in just a little bit. And this project really didn't take a lot of time. I think this in total took, from the time I started to the time I finished, maybe 3 hours, 3.5 hours. The sanding, of course, is what takes the longest, and starting and stopping and, getting the camera cleaned up and all that stuff. But not a whole lot of issues here. The gouging part went relatively easy. I really took my time. Like I said, it's a lot warmer here in Texas right now, so the chisels tend to eat through the material a lot easier, in my opinion. And then just working off the sides and just getting to a nice depth that we want. I might later in the future make a lid for some of these projects, but I think for the next couple of projects, we're probably going to do about this size of project, which I think are really cool. I think sometimes switching it up from those larger to smaller projects works out a little bit better. Only downfall to doing projects this size is that it takes a lot of epoxy, and that can get pricey as those projects start to build up. But not too worried about that portion of it here. I think we're going to do a couple of these and then go back to maybe doing something a little bit different. But overall, this project, not a whole lot of issues. Like I said, getting really good ribbons off. You can see all the material on the wall, and then I'm starting and stopping the lathe a couple of times just to clean up the workbench, putting all that on the floor, and you get to see the big pile of shavings here in just a little bit. But working the lip of the bowl, I think that was the only part where I was kind of scared a little bit that I was going to get some chip out. That's always my biggest fear with doing projects like this, is getting a little too close to that edge and catching a snag to where it just chips out, and then the whole project is essentially ruined. And this isn't so much a bowl as it is pretty much like a plate, I would say. It's like a plate with some depth, I would say. It's not really a bowl, but I like the shape of this. Here I am starting and stopping again just to see where we are depth-wise. I'm pretty happy with it. I've learned not to be too aggressive and just kind of, take what you can get with these projects sometimes, and that's kind of just the best way to do it. But we're almost done here. Here's all of the shavings from this one pot, and it's always amazing how many shavings come from just one project. So that's what it looks like initially. Got to clean up the flag a little bit, and then we get the workbench and everything cleaned up, and then we're going to start my favorite part, which is sanding, because everybody knows every woodworker's favorite thing is sanding. So here we go from 340. We're going to go up to I think 800 on this one, and then we're going to come back and hit it with a micro mesh. And you'll see some warping and some bubbling in the middle of it, and that's essentially where I couldn't gouge evenly. Unfortunately, as tight as I do the chuck, it tends to wobble off of the lathe, and I probably need to get a new chuck jaws as well to prevent that from happening. But you can see the cool spiral looking, how this looks. And I'm just cutting back, and I think this oil base that they use for cutting boards, I think this is probably some of the best stuff I've ever used other than wood wax on this epoxy, and it really just makes the shine look a lot neater in my opinion. But overall, really good project. Again, I apologize for the technical difficulties in not getting this video out until the afternoon, but every Sunday will, as far as I can do, will always be the release date. So thanks for sticking with me. Here's the end project here. It looks really good. I love the sparkle, love how this all looks. Next week's project will probably be a table. I've been doing a lot more tables for people, and those are a lot of fun. So here's the end project. You can see that bubbling in the middle a little bit, but overall I'm really happy how this turned out. Really fun project. Nice to make something a little bit different, and in spite of doing the same thing over and over again, I still love making these, and I hope you guys like watching. So I'll catch you guys in the next one, and we'll see what next week happens. But next week's project will be at the same regular time, and I'll see you in the next one. All right, peace. All right, so project is done, and look at this little guy. A lot bigger bowl than we have been doing on the channel, and I'm sure I went over that in the commentary. You can kind of see through it a little bit. Kind of, sort of, not really, but overall I think it looks pretty good. Nice different colors, bigger shape. We didn't obviously do a lid for this, and that's okay. And we've got some ripples in it because my lathe can only handle so big a project, and you get a lot of vibrations and setting and all that shit, and it just vibrates kind of off. So it's better to have something to show for it than try to gouge it all out and ruin a project. But it's got like a pretty decent depth in it. You can put like your car keys and stuff in it. Not too bulky, not too shallow. So overall, really happy. Not a whole lot of issues. It's actually only 88 degrees in my workshop right now, so that's a good thing. So I'm gonna go inside. It's about 10:30. Edit this. You guys are gonna watch this tomorrow. Trying to stack some videos for the summer. It's just hard because it's 1,000 degrees in here, and I'm trying not to pass out. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you liked it, and I'll see you guys in the next one. All right, peace.